Hello everyone and welcome back to For the Minions, a weekly show where we talk about Core, Predecessor, Ethereal, Phoenix Rising. No, Phoenix Rising is not dead. I know a lot of people think that, but we'll get more into that later. This week we're going to cover news and updates as always. Then we'll get into the poll results for this week. After that we're going to be talking about Prime Buff, the effects of the Prime Buff and the old Prime Buff cards. And then we're going to get into a community section that people were yelling about even during Paragon, when Paragon was alive and well, and that's more bestial heroes in the roster. I am your host today. I am the one and only Mangoose. Joining me, as always, although she's feeling a little under the weather, it's Mandy Mal.
What's going on? Sorry, I sound terrible.
Poor Mandy. Mandy's not going to be talking a lot this one. I'm going to be taking it away this time. And Mandy, why don't you introduce our guest? I'm very excited for our guest this week.
I'm very excited too. We have the one, the only, Ruba. How are you, sir? Thank you so much for joining us.
I'm doing very well, thank you, Mandy. I'm very glad to be here. Big fan.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much. So go ahead and tell us a little bit about just how you got started with Predecessor, and as always, you have to tell us your favorite hero to play.
Well, I actually started working for a company that was involved with Epic during the launch of Paragon. So I still work for a company that do some of that work, and I saw some of the early Paragon stuff. I then got really excited when I saw a lot of what was happening. I joined in some of the early online tests, and then I've been involved in the community since, well, for a very long time. I was part of the Epic Community Leader team. I was a subreddit mod for /r Paragon. I've been an online coach for Paragon for some competitive players over the time. And then after everything kind of closed down and I just kind of was working on getting better at Unreal Engine, and I kind of bummed around various places. And then I ended up helping the Omega Studios team moderate their Discord and Twitch. So nowadays I just kind of hang around in their chat, help people out. Looking forward to playing Paragon again, or playing something like Paragon again.
Yeah, man, you are just too cool for school. Thanks so much for being here with us.
Yeah, Ruba knows more about Paragon than I think most people at Epic know about Paragon. He is a huge source of knowledge. I'm very happy to have him here. And also, my background footage, you probably know I just use old episodes of Casting Call. I pulled the one that Ruba had, which was a Steel Casting Call, and threw that in the background. So, Steel, was that your favorite hero, Ruba?
Yeah, well, I was a big jungler for a long time. And yeah, it was a struggle between not Sevarog. I wasn't a huge Sevarog fan, but Crunch, Grux. But probably by far my favourite was Jungle Steel, especially post V42 when we had Red Zone. So yeah, I loved running around as Jungle Steel, bonking, and then hiding off into the jungle and bonking stuff and getting my cooldown from my ult back, and then come bonking stuff. So yeah, I loved Jungle Steel before it was meta.
Red Zone Steel.
Wow.
That was the thumbnail. I asked Ruba who we wanted for the thumbnail. He said Steel, but Jungle Steel, none of that pissy support Steel stuff. So that was a bit of a challenge for me. I think I pulled through though.
Beautiful.
So moving on, news and updates this week, starting with MetaBuff. They have their own Twitch category now, so you can now, if you stream anything core related, or if you're just looking at old Paragon videos, what have you, you can now stream to core's category. So that's exciting stuff. Some social stuff for them. And then also this week they released another survey that kind of inspired the topic of discussion for this week, which is the functionality of the Orb Prime. I'm not sure if they released it to everyone yet. I know they released it to content creators, but they usually release it to everyone a little bit after the content creators. So stay up in their Discord. Keep an eye out for that survey if you're a core fan. And also, I heard everybody's cries last week, and for having somebody from Core come and host a show with us. And I've been talking to Opolis Prime, their marketing manager, and he will be with us on April 4th, I think. So be looking forward to that. So you guys have any opinions on the Twitch category, the Orb Prime survey, or the fact that they're even doing surveys at all?
Ruba, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I think it's a really, really good way. Like, I know a number of the new projects are very community driven, and one of the biggest challenges with getting into that is trying to sift through all the information and data, and surveys are a really good way. I've always liked that how they'll go out to competitive people and get their opinion, but the general average Joe player who might not play in the same headspace or play to the same level, their opinion's still important. And I think for surveys, it's a really good way to get lots of really meaningful, useful data in a way that they can actually do something with. Like, a lot of the time these companies go out and ask for data. If they're not able to get all their feedback in properly and address it and go back to people, they can do more damage than just not asking for it in the first place. So it's good to see, but I would like to see the survey start to drive some of the content they're outputting, and them reflecting back that survey data in a useful way.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I agree, and I think it helps the community feel a part of what's going on, a part of the development, and like their voice is being heard, that their opinion is being asked. So I think it's a really cool thing that they're that they're doing, those surveys.
That's a very good point. It is very inclusive. So moving on to Omega Studios and predecessor. Not a lot coming from them this week. They are gearing up for that alpha. It should be out anytime now. But what I wanted to do is they do have on their frequently asked questions, they have the minimum requirements and suggested requirements for the computers if you're going to get like a desktop computer to try and run the game. Bear in mind that these are very ballpark. These aren't right on the money. This, don't take these completely to heart. But I did want to go through. I went through Newegg and priced up some refurbished parts and some new parts, and just tried to get a general ballpark estimate of what you might be paying for a desktop if you do buy one. For the minimum requirements, what came out to $435. That includes power supply, the tower, stuff that wasn't actually listed on here. And then for the recommended requirements, it's about $1,000 is what you might be wanting to pay for like really good immersive gameplay. And Ruba, I think you threw this together, didn't you? So you probably have a lot to say about this.
A little bit, yeah. A lot of this is it's ballpark because the Unreal Engine itself is very dependent on how many actors you have in the world, how detailed your map is. If Omega decide to change their map in the future, or like I know at the moment if you've seen their core and how that looks, that's a placeholder, and they might update it with new graphics, or they bring in more heroes and so on. So it can change, and until the game's fully released and they've had a chance to figure out all those optimization things that they have to figure out and get it running, it's generally like this is a very, very like where it's going to be at the end. I would always say that if you get invited into an alpha or beta, wait until you have the invite in your hand. Don't go buy a PC or anything in anticipation. But once you have the invite in your hand, go out and buy something. If you are going to be part of the alpha and beta, expect the performance during the alpha or beta to require something slightly more. As it goes through that optimization, like you might be playing a version of the client that doesn't have all the optimization in, so the specs might be slightly more demanding than what's here. This is just a kind of guideline, get you in the right direction if you're thinking of buying something.
Yeah, like I said, very, very, very ballpark on this. It could be way lower, it could be way higher. But this is the general idea to kind of satisfy people's curiosity. And then moving on to Ethereal. Ethereal this week they started an Amino. It's an Amino app. It's they didn't start their own app. They started a page on the Amino app. If you don't know what that is, it's just kind of a social networking site, kind of like Discord, kind of like a mix between Discord and Trello, I would say. But it's pretty neat. If you have the Amino app and you want to get linked in with Ethereal, that's the way to go. I'll post that in the comments. They also verified their Discord server, which really just kind of adds a little bit of swag, a little bit of credibility to the server, and opens up some higher quality voice channels. And then just a reminder, the lore contest ends on the 25th, so if you have not submitted your lore story, you might want to get popping if you want a chance to join their lore team and help them create some new heroes. now's your chance. But you got to get it done by the 25th. I'll link that down in the description below as well if you want to enter that lore competition, which I think is a pretty cool idea to allow people to help design the heroes. I mean, they're going to work with the department leads to design the heroes. I don't think you have free reign to just do whatever you want. There are limitations to that, of course. And they're using the Unreal Engine too. What do you think about Ethereal, Ruba?
I think it looks interesting. Like when all these kind of like other non-Paragon inspired games came up, I was really interested to see how things would do differently. Ethereal looks really interesting. Yeah, I think they're trying something new. They're trying something different. Like for a long time, a lot of people know there's a market for a 3D MOBA. And while it's good to see some companies trying to recapture what made Paragon great, there's still loads of room for people to try new things with MOBA. Like a lot of people will say that MOBA is a very tired concept, but like we saw from Paragon, it came out of nowhere. There's still loads of places for these teams to go, and I always think that there's plenty of room in the gaming market for multiple games that offer different things to players. So yeah, exciting to see as they progress. Some of their characters, some of their heroes look really, really impressive.
Yeah. I really like their art. Mandy, anything?
Mm-hmm. Kind of going with what Ruba said, I'm always a little bit surprised when I hear people say like, oh, MOBA's a dying genre or whatever, because I think Ethereal just proves, just like he said, there's so much room for innovation, and it's really cool. I'm very excited. I love that they are, again, getting that community involved with the lore and the development. Makes you feel included. It's really cool.
I got my lore submission in, by the way, already.
Did you?
I'm not competing. Mine was just for fun. I'm not trying to take one of the top slots or anything. Moving on to Phoenix Rising. We haven't been covering Phoenix Rising a lot because they haven't had a lot of updates. That's because they were they blew their load in the beginning a little bit, released a little too much, and then they're a little gun shy now for releasing updates. But they do want to put out, and this is partially my fault too. I guess I just didn't relay this information clearly enough. They're not doing a 3v3 one-lane MOBA. They are still doing a 5v5 3-lane MOBA that is heavily inspired by Paragon, yet not using the Paragon assets. When we talk about when they're saying a 3v3 one-lane MOBA, that's simply for testing. As you can see from Predecessor was using like a 2-lane map for a lot of their testing, and a lot of people mistakenly believed that was going to be the full map. We now know that that was definitely not Predecessor's full map. They have a much more impressive map. That's kind of what Phoenix Rising is doing. They're just doing a 1-lane 3v3 just for testing purposes and just to kind of demo some things for the community. But their in-state goal is still a 5v5 3-lane map. So that's all I have for Phoenix Rising. Phoenix Rising people I see a lot of that in the polls that I do. Like, is it Phoenix Rising dead? No, they're not dead. They're just very quiet.
Yeah, I think I'm so sorry. Excuse me. I was misinformed as well. I thought that the first thing the public would see would be that 1v1 3. You know what I'm trying to say. Not the yeah. I didn't realize that was going to be just for testing purposes. So I think I kind of misreported that too. So that's interesting that they went ahead and cleared that up for us, and it's good to know. Good info.
Were you tracking Phoenix Rising when it first came out, Ruba?
Yeah, I had probably a problem that I think a lot of the community have, is that when some of the first teams started going through all their different naming conventions, and some of the names were so similar, for a while I just got confused with trying to keep tabs on everyone, because there was Undying games and Visionary games and then Brain Dead games merged with what Meta Buff used to be called, and it just became really difficult and confusing, and I still get them mixed up. Like someone was talking to me, Redhead and Rowan was talking to me today about Ethereal, I think it was, and I totally got confused and started talking about something else.
Yeah. It doesn't help that a lot of their symbols look alike, too.
I got 5 Discords that look identical on the inside.
So, if you're interested in learning any more about any of these games at all, just check out their Discord, socials, and all that. I'll link them in the video description below, as always. So let's move on to the poll results for this week. First of all, let's go with last week. Last week we had 337 votes. Core was at 46, Predecessor at 33, Ethereal at 18, Phoenix Rising at 4. This week we had 491 votes, with Core at 42%, Predecessor at 37%, Ethereal at 17, Phoenix Rising at 3. So Phoenix and Ethereal kind of stay in the same. Predecessor creeping up a little more on Core. Let's see, I'm kind of willing to bet that once their alpha actually releases and people start releasing content for the game, that Predecessor will probably overtake Core for a little bit until Core releases their information. And also I'm going to go ahead and start doing a bar graph, since we have 3 weeks of this data now, so we can kind of see how things have gone so far. Eventually I'll do an entire graph that shows what updates happened at certain times that may have affected these numbers. Okay, this week's topic of discussion is prime buff effects, kind of inspired by the survey that MetaBuff put out, and something that was in the survey that I completely forgot about was prime cards. I don't know if you guys never played in Legacy. You used to be able to pick what the prime buff would do for you. You would pick a card that would either, give you increased health or increased damage or attack speed, that sort of thing, which I thought was a pretty cool concept. I wouldn't mind seeing that come back, but there are elements of the prime buff that I would not like to see come back. But I'm going to go ahead and let Ruba take it away. Ruba, what thoughts do you have on prime buffs?
But I think it probably falls into the same category when we talk about passives. In Paragon, I know a lot of people were fans of the original passives, like Decker used to give mana to allies when she cast a spell, and Gideon had free spell pen, Grok's got health.
I did not know that.
And the first 13 had all these weird, very slight passives that did certain stuff.
Oh, I do remember.
Yeah, that I knew. I didn't know Decker gave mana though.
I think that when she cast a spell, nearby allies got a little bit of mana back, which wasn't it didn't really change much. For all these passives, if you played other games like League or Smite, or their passives are part of the hero kit. And I think if you're going to introduce something like prime cards that give people meaningful choice, I remember the old cards, and it was really only two choices. You had a tank card, which I think was called the Centurion, that gave you extra health, and then there was two damage cards called the Warlord and the Archmagus, and they gave physical damage or energy damage depending on what hero you played. So if you were Murdoch, you went for the energy one. If you were Sparrow, you went for the melee one, or the physical attack one. And it didn't really you had a choice between tank and damage, but it wasn't really a meaningful choice. There was nothing, you just picked the one that was most relevant, and the game could have done that for you. It's went, you're playing Severog, well, there's a tank card, or you're playing Sparrow, there's a damage one. So I like the idea of, when you get Prime, having the buff more meaningful, and giving the player that kind of choice, depending on how they play and who they play. If they're, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a say there are Zinks, and Zinks can either go mid or off or support, and it gives you that bit of flexibility to help add some character to your build. And if they're bringing it in as a gimmick of pick a prime card, but you don't really pick a prime card, it kind of detracts from the value of making that pick and that choice.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, really the only people that had a choice was tanks. You could either go for more health whenever you had prime, or more damage. But yeah, everybody else, it was pretty much set.
Yeah, and I was going to say, everyone, I think throughout the entire Paragon is always given a 20% damage buff, all the way through, and they've had some other iterations of just awful prime buffs, what was it called? Death Touch?
Oh god, yeah.
Where all the minions would, all your allied minions would, for I think I'm probably making this up, for 15 to 30 seconds, would all of a sudden just start killing, one-shotting enemy minions, so you didn't have to push lanes or set up for Prime. It was terrible, but yeah, Prime's a big thing. A lot of people like Prime and a lot of the mechanics associated with it, but it needs to really mean something for players. If they're going to ask questions about it, they should really be focusing on how the player uses that choice effectively.
That's a very good point. One of the things I was talking about I disliked about Prime, the old Prime dunking, the defensive dunk, I absolutely despise that. You would do a defensive dunk and it would raise all of your inhibitors that had been destroyed. It didn't matter how many had been destroyed. Like, you could have all 3 inhibs down, you do a defensive Prime dunk and you get them all back. I used to hate that. I thought it extended the game needlessly, and it was just did not care for it at all. Mandy, what do you think about defensive Prime dunks raising inhibitors?
That sounds like a recipe for a 2-hour game.
It was.
Like, no.
It was.
Yeah. No, that doesn't sound... I'd rather... No, I don't like it. And am I crazy, or was there something after V42 where you would pick... It wasn't a card, but it was like... Didn't you pick something that you would get like an extra buff or something if Prime was activated? Or am I just completely in a NyQuil haze right now?
I don't remember anything to that effect.
No? Okay. I thought I remembered something after V42 where it was like you got to choose. I don't know. I'm on a lot of drugs.
It sounds like fun. Both ideas, both picking something extra for Prime and for being all hopped up on NyQuil. Both sound incredibly entertaining.
It's a good time.
What do you think about the defensive dunks, Ruba?
Well, so I'm very much the mindset that MOBAs are, and I'll try not to sound too much like Cam Winston, but I really agree with like some of the ways that MOBAs in themselves were designed, like round about the old Warcraft days, where there were economy games, and like your job was like to take money out of the map, and like throughout the course of the game, it's like you're getting more powerful, you're getting money. Like, you should always be a team that has that economic advantage should always be in a position to win. And the more that you add to have comeback mechanics or leveling it out, it's almost like you're being disrespectful to a team have got, say, 10 more kills and 100 more CS and they're doing well. Like, they should be in a position to be stronger for the game. And defensive dunks, in my experience, a lot of people seem to think of them with fond memories, but I remember matches where we would manage a defensive dunk and it just delayed things. Like, it didn't really change the outcome of the match. And I think if you're going to add something like defensive dunks, and that's your kind of intention, is to let the losing team come back and give them an opportunity that if they can outplay a stronger team, I think that's a good point. Like, if they're able to beat a stronger team and then come back as a result of it, you know, they've outplayed someone somewhere, they've made a good, meaningful decision that's allowed them to win. And if you can design something that gives that, fair enough. Like, if it actually changes the outcome of the matches, by all means. But if all it's doing, like, if you lose 2 inhibs and you get them back, there's nothing stopping the enemy team just taking them again. Like, you haven't gotten more powerful, you haven't got a huge amount of stuff out of it. Like, what's the point? All it does is just delay the inevitable. If you're losing, you're going to keep losing, and you're just going to take longer to lose. At least get the game out of the way, move on to the next one. That one's done.
I think I've only had one game back in Legacy where the defensive dunk actually played a role in who won the game. It was almost always exactly as you said, just a delay of game, which I liked the longer games in Paragon as long as it was going long because it was a good back and forth match. It shouldn't go long because somebody happened to steal the orb prime and then and then do a defensive dunk and raise their fucking inhibitors all over again. So yeah, hopefully I don't want to see that. I wouldn't mind some defensive properties to the orb prime buff once you get it, but definitely not that. The other thing orb prime tends to do is mana and health regen. What do you guys think? Should mana and health regen be out of combat, or should that be just an overall flat always have mana and health regen while you have the orb prime buff?
That's a good question. I don't have a strong opinion one way or the other. Probably while it's active, I would say, instead of it being like an out of a combat thing.
I suppose it really depends what unit want to use it for. Like, I know, like, that like it would be a sieging mechanic. So you'd go up, you'd siege a little bit, you'd have your extra damage. You'd like if you're trying to push an inhib down, you don't really want to go back to base. I don't know. I think I'm in two minds. I think one is that if you get Prime and your team's all kind of smashed up from taking Prime because you did it early or you did it without a team member, so you've committed more resources, then going, right, we're all at 25% health, let's go left lane and just push. And by the time we get there, we're healthy and we can like siege and take inhibs. I don't know. I'm not like it doesn't really call for a lot of choice. Like as long as you get the Prime, that's the decision made. That's all you have to worry about. So I don't know if I like that, but at the same time, if you're trying to take an inhib down and 5 people are up, and you're having to, like, you have like a continued siege, so your minions go under tower, then they get cleared, and you're just kind of stood there, and you take some poke. If the enemy team can just go back to base and, like, spend 10 seconds running up to the font and go back and then come back, then, well, I don't know. Again, it's kind of like, it's a way to not have these really long, drawn-out matches where the team with Prime, they can actually do something. Like you're enabling them to have that little bit, you know, more damage and the regen so that they can actually take objectives to try and close the match out.
Yep, good point. I think that's all I had to say about Prime, unless you guys had anything else you wanted to add.
I'm good.
No, I think I'm good.
Yeah, I think Paragon did several iterations of it, so we got to see some different things that can be accomplished with Prime, and hopefully all of these games will learn from those lessons and take the good and leave the bad. So we're going to move on to the Death Touch. We're going to move on to the community suggestion this week. I've been waiting to get into this one. This was one that people have been calling for even while Paragon was still alive and well, and that's more bestial heroes in the game. And one of the reasons I've been holding off on this is I wanted somebody that could really speak intelligently about it, and we got him. We got Ruba. Ruba can definitely fill us in on some of the bestial heroes for Paragon, and also maybe the challenges involved with, you know, creating a beast type hero.
Yeah, what a subject. So I think so. For anyone that know, like probably most of my experience in kind of digging into Paragon stuff, like I used to be a rigger, and I still do some modeling in a Blender, and so I've been getting quite into like Paragon animations and how it all works and how it all sticks together. And what you realize is one of the reasons they were able to commit so strongly to every 3 weeks and that like really aggressive hero release schedule was they copied and pasted a lot of their animation assets and a lot of their rigging. Like it was all relatively very, very similar in terms of how the work did, and they just had to make tweaks. But some of the heroes, like Rampage in particular, and who else? There's one I was looking at. Hobbits to an extent, but they were a little bit different. But most of the heroes followed a very similar format, so that their animators could just do all their mocap and build their animations, and then they would throw them on a template, rig it up, and it was good to go. Which, when you're doing a lot of that fine animation work and working with bones and modelling and getting everything right and abilities layering up, is a big, big time draw and part of the animation development cycle. But I know that Epic themselves, like you can go through and look at a lot of the concept art. I think Mike Time, I think I get his name right, and Herman NG, they were two of the big concept artists for Paragon. If you've been on ArtStation, you can see loads of their work. They were working on a number of bestial heroes towards the end of the Paragon cycle, and in fact, I think they actually changed up the release schedule at the end. Like we weren't supposed to get Terra when we got Terra. There was some other heroes in the mix that they'd been working on for a long time, and through technical stuff and the amount of extra work that was required to get these bestial heroes in, they ended up either shelving them or pushing them back in terms of their production cycle, just because there was so much effort. A couple that spring to mind, so there was Marsh, who was actually leaked at one point, I think round about the V42 PTR, some images of Marsh came up. He was like a, what's the best way of describing him? He was like a toxic beast, kind of similar to, what was he kind of look like? One of the, I don't know, like an alien type character, but he had these poison pustules on his back, and his auto attack was he would grab poison and throw it at the enemy. he went under the ground like a puddle. So he like went up toxic goo and he dived under the ground and went through the ground and popped up. He was like all spines and tendrils and things like that. But probably the most difficult one they had was a hero called Hatch, who was like a giant tarantula type spider hero. And she was like jungler offlaner type. But one of Hatch's unique mechanics is that she could stick to any surface. So she could climb up walls and go around pillars and kind of go over stuff. So she had that kind of verticality built in. But in terms of technical implementation, like they actually gave up on Hatch. Some of the people that went to see a lot of the work that Epic did saw her, and they just couldn't figure out the technical aspects of her. So they actually they did a lot of work, and there's lots of cool concept art and stuff up there you can find for her, but they just gave up. But I think like Boris was probably the most like non just person hero we're going to be getting in a long time. And if you've seen anything that Rocket Mania's done with Overthrow, and you actually see Boris live and walking around and doing stuff, it was a real shame that we didn't get to see him properly with like all the Paragon animation team, Jazz and Sparkle around him. See him look really, really good. It was a shame.
What you were talking about Hatch, I'm kind of glad they didn't release Hatch, because that sounds fucking terrifying.
It was some of the concept art is really cool for all the Paragon heroes. Like their concept artist did such an amazing job. But then you see Hatch and she is just terrifying. She was supposed to be like a jungler and she'd leap out. So can you imagine if you were sat off lane, just doing your thing, doing your last hits, and all of a sudden this big giant spider just climbed over the top of Aqua Buff and came down on your face, and she had like web. I can imagine people being traumatized as a result of Hatch.
Yeah,
that sounds like the coolest thing and the most terrifying thing ever. It's like I want to see it, and I don't ever want to see it.
Was she like 4-legged, 3 or 8-legged, or
like full 8?
Oh, really?
Full 8. Yeah, she was quite the scary thing. And I think like one of the things that Paragon and their lore team did really well was having the 3 moons. And that you had the Zekin moon, and like it was all like primordial characters like Rampage and Morrigesh, and like had loads of work down there. And it was a shame that you didn't actually get to see her in game. But I think she had some, from what was described, she had some really cool mechanics, and some really cool features for a hero like that.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. I still don't understand why we didn't get Boris. Like, the game was announced to be dead. Why didn't they just let us play him for a little bit? That's true. That always kind of chapped my ass.
Yeah, that's it. That question comes up a lot, and I remember we were speaking to one of the community guys at the end, like when like the announcement came out and everything was up, and the question came up. Can you extend it out a bit longer? Can you do things? And I don't think people realised, and Epic were quite clear, like there was so much work required to keep everything Paragon online, like all their online services, and all, like just even if the game's in like dormant mode or hibernation, they're not doing any new development, the amount of effort required by the Epic team to keep it going was just, like they just couldn't afford to do it, which was a shame. Like it would have been nice to even have another couple of months, get Boris. He was ready. That's the thing, like people played him. Like it wasn't like he was still going. There was probably about 6 or 7 heroes that we never got that were in a almost ready to ship state. So yeah, it was a shame we didn't get just the chances to. Because that's the thing. It's like, fair enough, we got Boris. The Boris is in the assets. So Metabuff or Omega or someone eventually, we're going to get to play Boris and see him and how cool he is and all these Russian voice lines. But there's all these heroes that, apart from like whispers and rumors and people's descriptions of them, we're never even going to see them. They're just sat in someone's hard drive somewhere, rotting away.
In somebody's heart.
Yeah, that was.
Well, hopefully,
idea.
As these games sort of progress and become more popular, and if they stick around long enough, we'll be able to get some other new Bestial Heroes stuff into the game whenever they begin adding heroes. I know Ethereal has a couple beasts in their lineup, but they're starting from the ground up. I'm not real sure about Phoenix Rising. I know their Prime buff was an absolute beast. I don't know if they're still going to be using that. I think they are. But yeah, I would definitely like to see more beast type heroes. Are they? Is it a lot harder to rig like a 4-legged hero as opposed to just like a standard 2-legged animation?
No, not really. Well, like, I'll explain. Oh, let me explain that. So, if you're starting from scratch and you've just got like, I need to build a model and then I need to do the skeleton rig and do things, there's a little bit of extra work you have to do for like more than 2 legs, because Unreal and a lot of the like animation setup that Paragon has, like you can still borrow it for new heroes, but they're all designed on 2-leg. They use a system called inverse kinematics, which is like when you stand in a slope and one leg goes up and one leg goes down.
Okay, yeah.
So if you're standing on a slope, you'll have one leg lower, or you're standing on stairs and you have one leg at a different angle. Like all that kind of technology and all that rigging is built in. And if you start doing 4 legs, you have to add in extra stuff, and like a lot of the animation technology that Paragon uses doesn't work with more than 2 legs. So you're going to have to go figure out that puzzle and then do some more work. So if you're starting from scratch in like new projects, no, not really. It's just a decision you make. Okay, he needs 4 legs. Let's make 4 legs and let's do the work. But if you're building new heroes, it might be a little bit more work because you have to figure out some big programming problems to enable it. But then once you figure it out, it's like relatively straightforward and similar.
Right on. That's good. That's good to hear.
Interesting.
I think that's all on Bestial Heroes. Unless you guys got anything else you want to add.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to plugs as we start to close out the episode. Mandy, anything to plug? I know you've been probably too sick to do anything, huh?
I've been way too sick to record, unfortunately. But yeah, but just hang in there with me. I'll have something soon, I hope.
Ruba, do you have like a Twitch stream or anything like that?
I do. I haven't used it in a long time. So I used to do lots of coaching stuff. However, hopefully, once the Omega Studios predecessor closed alpha comes out, I'm hoping that I'm going to be involved in some matches for that, and I'm going to be playing through it. Again, I'm not part of the Omega Studios team. I'm just part of their moderators and help out. But I'm definitely, if I get access, I'm going to be streaming it. I'm going to be answering questions, giving my thoughts, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'll give you details for my Twitch stream if I do. I'm hesitant because I stream so infrequently. But yeah, I'm more than happy to share it. And if my Twitch is there and I'm online, come have a chat, come check me out.
Okay, right on. And I'll want to get that information. Cool. I'll link it down in the description below. That's awesome. Good stuff to hear. And hopefully I can get some coaching from you.
Yeah, I need it.
For me, I changed my name to Mangoose. It's no longer Mongoose. It's actually Mangoose. That's the only change for me, really. But I think that's it for this week. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I know I certainly did. It was very good to have Ruba in here. And Ruba, you and I discussed maybe having a recurring thing where you do some of the more technical aspects of the game. Are you still interested in that?
Yeah, I'd love to. I know there's so much information going about what these remakes need to do, some of the technical stuff, all the challenges they have to make. And yeah, if you're interested, I'm more than happy to come back and discuss that in more detail.
Definitely interested, yeah. Okay, great. And that's going to be all for this week's episode. Thank you once again for tuning in. This is Mangoose for the Minions team. Goodbye, everybody. Thanks for coming. Mangoose!